It had five particular. I'm sorry, I thought someone was talking. Yeah, but this Uniform Act passed by Congress in 1970. It virtually had five major goals it wanted to accomplish. Number one would be ensuring that property owners are treated fairly and consistently during the acquisition process. It also encourages the department, along with parcel owners, to expedite the acquisition of said property. Uh, Also, the purpose is to minimize litigation and court congestion, promote public confidence, also tips to ensure that any displaced people are treated fairly, consistently, and equitably. And with that last point being made, one of the primary things that we can't do, ultimately, we can't discuss where we are in negotiations with any particular parcel due to the fact that that could jeopardize the confidentiality that is supposed to be given to each individual parcel owner at this time. If there are any other questions in particular regarding the project that we want to bring up or to address, I'll be more than happy to do so. Either me, myself, Paul, or a representative from the area.
With that said, Councilwoman Pritchett, if you don't mind, you monitoring. I'm not asking you, but or you have somebody on your team that can monitor questions that they may have, might be by raising their hand, putting up, and then we can address one at a time.
Yes, I'm doing the monitoring, it looks like. And I don't see, let me see. I see one hand raised. So Miss Loretta Little Lyles, good to see you, Loretta. If you would please unmute yourself to ask your question.
Thank you for hosting the meeting for us. I really appreciate that. My question has to do with the customs or the process of the upgrades to the bridge. I'm concerned that as residents of Oakley and this project directly affecting us, that one, we were not addressed prior to the start of the project. We weren't in receipt of any renderings of what to expect as far as what the project would look, what it encompass, the start, the finish. We received nothing. There just people showed up, uprooting trees, cutting down things. And when the project stopped, all of those clippings, shrubs, everything was just left there for months on end. And I just found that very poor as far as the community is concerned. There was no communication with us about what was happening, what we could expect, when was going to start again, when was going to end. From the onset, there was a lack of communication, and I'm concerned about that part of it. So I guess my question is, customarily, how are these projects handled? Is it customary that the people who are directly affected are not kept abreast of what's going on, or even told that these things are going to happen?
Mr. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ms. Pritchett.
Mr. Valenzuela, if you can answer that, the answer that I can provide in my limited involvement to this, there is a schedule that we have from Georgia Department of Transportation that tells us about the different projects that are coming up. And when I found out that this project was about to happen, my involvement in it is making sure that we had the signage outside of the community to let you know when the construction will be starting and that type of thing. So that way people would know when to anticipate roads being closed and that type of thing. But outside of that, I will let Mr. Valenzuela explain what our city's process is on notifying the community when these type of projects are underway.
Yes, Councilwoman Pritchett, since the project was led by Georgia DOT, so in those scenarios, the city follows GDOT guidelines when it comes to the construction lettings, which is a bit different when the city does. However, just for the community's input, I know that when the project was on the concept stage, there were several meetings with regards to the Oakley over Broadnax bridge replacement. So there were meetings where it was discussed the conditions of the bridge, as well as the construction letting schedule provided by Georgia DOT. As the project was getting closer to the letting, without necessarily knowing that there were some issues with the rights of way, the project was advertised and there were some signages installed at several locations as you enter that corridor. So it was with the full intention to bring the attention of the community to that the project was coming on board. And I have to say that we didn't know exactly that there were a few items that needed to be corrected, which caused some issues for the community as well as for the city, and I'm sure for Georgia DOT as well, which I believe don't have all the details, but let me allow Landon or Paul to add to what I said to ensure we provide all the information that's required for this project.
So I do want to make clear, and I do see the hands that are raised, and I will call on the next person. I do want to make this clear. When projects, infrastructure projects or improvement projects happen, it takes a while, and that means many years. This is a project that was talked about. This is a project that these meetings that happened were when Councilman Mark Baker was representing District 7, and that is obviously almost 2 years ago. So although many of you may not remember having these meetings, as Mr. Valenzuela has explained, that these meetings did take place, but I will say this, from this point forward, as I become aware of these different projects, I will make sure that the community is informed ahead of time. Hopefully, most of you or all of you subscribe to my newsletter, my community newsletter, in which I try to keep the community informed of things that are coming up. Now, one question that was placed in the chat asked to explain why is there a hold on the parcel that Oakley Township owns. So as Mr. Perry, I believe, explained, Oakley Township being one of the parcel owners, as you know, as you're asking, it probably is not appropriate to give any more details related to that situation because of the ongoing negotiation with that landowner. So I think that's my response is correct, Mr. Perry?
Yeah, that is correct. And to add into the young lady's other question, Ms. Lyles, there was a PIOH that was held back in 2021, which stands for Public Invitation Open House, and that virtually is a meeting that allows the local government, along with GDOT, as well as stakeholders such as yourself, to come in and ask questions regarding various subject matter experts such as myself, Paul, or whomever we have at said meetings to discuss the timeline of the project, the overall scope of the project, and allow stakeholders to be able to ask any questions as well. And if I'm not mistaken, Antonio, maybe you can follow up on this one as well. This one had a detour meeting was held for this as well, but also to help improve transparency between the department as well as the city of South Fulton. The city of South Fulton representatives, including Antonio, Venezuela, myself, and Paul, we're engaging in quarterly meetings so we can give real-time updates on various projects that are ongoing, so that way when local constituents have questions, if they want to reach out to the city of South Fulton, they have up-to-date information on projects that are actively going on within their jurisdiction at the time. And also, just to follow up what Ms. Pritchard stated, I will agree with her that we can't get into specific negotiations with specific parcels at this time due to the fact that that is confidential between the negotiator and said parcel owners.
So I'm not sure if this is appropriate, but I'm going to ask because I want to make sure that the residents on this call understand what we're talking about in terms of the investment being made by the state and also the investment being made by the city. is it appropriate to state the approximate cost of this bridge improvement project?
Yeah, I don't think that would be a problem discussing that. Give me 1 second. I can actually pull that information for you.
Because the reason I bring this up is because I want to make sure that the community understands that, as Mr. Valenzuela explained, Mr. Valenzuela or Mr. Perry explained that the Georgia Department of Transportation has borne the cost, 96% of the cost. And then that meaning that the city had to put in 4% in the matching, in the funds that we have to match. So I think I have an idea of the number that Mr. Perry is going to come up with. And I will say this, that is what you're going to hear is a significant investment in the infrastructure and improvement of the Oakley Township community. Although it is all taxpayer money, it's money and resources that are being brought to this community where the community is not shelling out any money for this to happen, other than whatever the negotiation is for this right of way.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Mr. Perry.
Yes, ma'am. Just to follow up with Richard, this total investment that we had on this project totaled around $3.8 million for this bridge replacement.
I didn't think it was going to be that high, but so
Yeah.
$3.8 million. So, when people talk about, you hear rhetoric about taxpayer dollars working for you. That's what this means. This is what that means. $3.8 million to do an improvement of a bridge, of something that, to be honest, it really benefits all the residents in Oakley Township. So with that being said, Mr. Fanning, who I believe to be the president of the Homeowners Association, he had his hand up. So at this time, Mr. Fanning, if you would unmute yourself to ask your question.
How you doing? Well, I guess before I ask these questions, I do want to ask, so do you not have anybody from GDOT or Georgia Power on this call, since they're the ones that's directly involved in it?
So, Mr. Fanning, to make this clear, I'm not sure at what point you came in or what you may have heard or not heard, but Mr. Perry is with the Georgia Department of Transportation, and Mr. Denard, who both introduced themselves in the beginning of this call, they are with the Georgia Department of Transportation.
Well, the reason I asked that is because they were saying things as if they weren't aware of any specifics, and I know we have not dealt with him directly. So I don't know what information he does or doesn't have. So
it's not, Mr. Fanning, it's not about information he does or doesn't have, because obviously if Georgia Department of Transportation has just explained that this is a $3.8 million project, which 96% of that cost, they are investing in your community. What they also explained in the beginning is that the details related to the acquisition of the right-of-way, that is something that will not be discussed on this call as to specifics because of the ongoing negotiations. But anything other than that, them and Mr. Valenzuela, who is the Public Works Director for the City of South Fulton, they will be glad to answer any of those questions.
Okay, so since we have them on, so one of the things that was communicated to us was, of course, this is supposed to be a bridge project. They're going to replace that bridge, put some sidewalks on both sides of it. So if that is the case, why do they need 4 acres of land for that?
Mr. Valenzuela or Mr.
I would not say 4 acres. I don't know where that information came from.
That's what they're telling us they're going to take from the community if the community does not give in to them and give them just accept whatever offer that they force upon the community. They're going to use eminent domain to take 4 acres of land. for one
So,
bridge.
so Mr. Fanning, I do want to just make this clear. It's because I see the language that you want to use in this conversation. So number one, no one is forcing anyone to do anything because at this time it's under negotiation. Now, as you, I'm sure, understand, with any negotiation, someone makes you an offer, you can accept it or you can refuse it. And then there are other things that happen after that. This call is to clarify to the residents that no one is forcing anything on anybody or any entity. What simply is happening here is that Department of Transportation, again, has a $3.8 million improvement project that will benefit your community. Whether you see it that way or not. You may not think that $3.8 million will benefit your community at all, and you're entitled to have your opinion. That's fine. But in terms of Mr. Perry or Mr. Denard, could you explain to Mr. Fannin why it, first of all, how much, if it's appropriate to speak about it here, how much land are we talking about with the acquisition of the right of way? And even before you answer that, can you explain to residents what the right of way actually means? I think I have a good understanding of it, but I want to make sure that the residents and Mr. Fanning understand what parcel or strips of land you are talking about and how that's going to affect those landowners in terms of why you need the particular amount of land you need.
So before you do that, that's not what my question is. So we have the information on what the land is. What we're being told is they want 4 acres. So my question is, if it's just for this bridge, why do you need?
So, Mr. Fanning, like I asked them to explain to all of us how much land they actually need. And once you hear that answer, that's the answer of how much land, not anything else that anybody comes up with. So we're just going to be clear on that. Mr. Perry or Mr. Denard or Mr. Valenzuela, could you answer this gentleman's question, please?
So sure. And Mr. Valenzuela, you'll call. Feel free to chime in afterwards. But ultimately, what it boils down to, we have to take a look at this. What are the overall limits of this project? This is the main purpose of this project is a bridge replacement project in conjunction with adding some signing and marking changes on here, along with adding a sidewalk in on here. So when we're doing our design level, it's not just like we can just take the bridge out and put a new bridge in. We have to really understand the limits of a right of way that's going to be needed, understanding the digital terrain model, which what we call the DTM, and not just trying to get too technical, but when we're doing a design, what we have to take into consideration the horizontal alignment as well as the vertical alignment. And as we go through and we're able to do our design, we have to make sure that we're doing a design that leaves the roadway in a better condition than it was in, which includes making sure that utilities are located properly, making sure that we have positive drainage within the area. And depending on the level of and terrain of that area, that can help us determine exactly how far we have to go out and the amount of limits that we have to basically acquire to help ensure that we put in that road in a better position that it's in. And when we talk about the overall amount of land that we're taking, we're not just talking about, one square plot of land. It's going along the entire project limit. So we're beginning construction all the way at, if I'm not mistaken, at Oakley Road, between Oakley Road and Blue Jay Road, all the way down to Loga Lane. So within that longitudinal strip of roadway for Oakley Road, we're acquiring right away on both sides of the roadway. So and I don't know where you got that total up to 4 acres. But that ultimately is the basic gist. The amount of right of way that's needed for a project is the amount of project to work within the environmental boundary, work within the construction footprint, but also to do it in such a way that we can design the roadway, have the same operational and safety efficiency that's needed with the land, but also to help ensure that we have positive drainage and that there are no utility conflicts at all that lie within that area. And oftentimes that forces us to go outside of the roadway boundary to help ensure that all that is taken care of. Also, you mentioned utilities as well. utility coordination is a major part of all projects that we do, especially in the pre-construction phase. In our major milestones that are accompanied within our PDP process, which stands for our plan development process. There's a first utility submission where we go in and we analyze what utilities are in the area. We contact said utility owners, request for them to provide us with markups either by hand or digital markups, which we then ingest into our design file, and we begin to design around those. Once we do that, we go to what we call our PFPR, which stands for our preliminary field plan review, where various subject matter experts, not only in the department, but also locals such as Mr. Valenzuela or representatives from his team, in conjunction with representatives from utility owners. They come in and they review the plan with us all together as one, either in person or in a virtual format. And they follow that up by going through a second round, which is known as second utility submission. By that time, we're further along in the design process, and the footprint is basically set in stone at that point. They provide their final markup, and our design goes up to that home stretch, which stands for our final field plan review. At that time, all subject matter experts weigh in on the project. By that time, there should be no utility conflicts at all, because I know that was one of your major questions. And also by that time, the vast majority of all of our right-of-ways should be procured by that time. Unfortunately, in this process, that wasn't the case. But like I said earlier before you hopped on, based on the Uniform Act, we must follow that. And that is a federal guideline that's been put in place since 1970. We had to start back over. When I say start back over, we had to re-engage the parcel owners who would be affected, whose parcels would be affected, and we have to touch bases with them to go through our negotiations to help ensure that they're fairly compensated with fair market value for said parcels. So that's what we are with that. If you have any more questions on that, I can elaborate even further if needs be.
So,
Yes.
Mr. Perry, if you could explain, I guess the right of way, to my understanding, is always from the curb to like 10 to 12 feet back. Typically, it's where you start seeing like the telephone poles. You normally see those in the right of way. I only know this from campaigning where, the signs are not supposed to be in the right of way. But could you say that in a better way than I did, so that residents understand what you're talking about on each side of the road?
Okay, so once again, there's several types of right of way. We have right of way that we own. We have what we call temporary easement, which means this is an area where the department needs to get in to do temporary construction and maintenance of slopes. But there's also what we call permanent easement. Permanent easement is a situation where the property owners still own their property, but if it's the permanent easement, then that will allow the department to be able to come on the land if there's a need for us to do any maintenance at all, due to some utilities and some assets that we might have in the area. Now, with regards to where the right of way begins and ends at, from a design perspective, we have to take survey, and the survey that we take in and ingest into our computer software. Once again, like I say, it helps us to create our digital terrain model. So once we begin modeling, we have to tie down our surfaces from the proposed roadway down into the existing roadway. In doing so, if we have to excavate land, that's considered a cut section. If we have to add earth and it's above ground, that's considered a field section. Depending on whether we're in a cut section or a field section will help us determine how much right of way we have to acquire, because once again, we have to be within our property when those construction vehicles actually able to come in and do the construction. They can't do construction in areas that we don't own. So for instance, if we're in a cut section, cut means that based on the limits that we have on our design, we typically go 7 to 10 feet outside of that cut section. That's the area that we need to acquire, because that will allow the construction equipment to go in and maneuver to be able to construct whatever it is that we're constructing in the area. If it's a field section, which means we have to come in and add dirt to the area to be able to tie down to the slope so that we can have positive drainage, then we need to go 10 to 15 feet outside of the cut limits. These limits are determined once we're doing our design work. We lay out our horizontal alignment, we lay out our vertical alignment, we understand what the typical is going to look like. We run it in a program. And once we run it in that program, that computer-aided design software will let us know where our cut and field limits are. Based on that, our designers will go in, set the necessary offsets on what we think that required right-of-way would need to be in order for us to have our construction team go in and maneuver said equipment to achieve the overall construction and goal of said project. And that's how we determine what area of right-of-way is needed for a particular project.
Okay, so with that being said, that doesn't even come close to encompassing all of those parcels that they're wanting to take.
Well, so once again, I can't get into specific
Let
negotiation, but
So,
let me explain for a second. So we have, in this project, we got 6 parcels. Out of those 6 parcels, some already acquire what the contractor needs to put the structure of the new bridge, to put its sidewalks on it. Once you build those new sidewalks and a better bridge for the area, we're going to need some land to ensure that the new infrastructure, it is within identified rights of way where in the future the city will come back and do any sidewalk repairs. That if the bridge has any issues, we'll come back and do some repairs and so on. GDOT city, we're not in the business of taking 1 inch of what we don't need. All that is required out of those 6 parcels, which I'm sure it varies parcel by parcel, and it depends where the parcel is. If it's in a cut or it's in the field, in some instances it might be more because unfortunately that's what it has to take due to engineering aspects that GDOT went through it. Just wanted to add those 2 things to ensure that the communication it is properly conveyed to you all.
Let me ask you this, man. Why does the county want that land?
okay, so Mr. Fanning, we're just going to put it to you this way. Your question was answered, and it's not about the county wanting the land. It's not about
But
anybody
it is
wanting
because
Mr. Fanning,
communicated that
we're not going to be both speaking at the
that
same
land
time.
is county.
That's what we're not going to do. So Mr. Fanning, here's where you are, right? I am not a negotiator in this process at all, but I do represent the city of South Fulton and particularly the area where your HOA is located. You have been thoroughly explained what this project is. Whether you like it, whether you think it's a benefit or not to the community, there is a negotiation process, and I believe that that process is underway. Whether you think it is fair or you do not think it is fair, whatever the outcome of the negotiation, whatever option you decide and choose to take is your decision. As far as for the purpose of this call today, I personally, well, professionally, am not going to allow you to mischaracterize what we're doing at all, because what we're doing, again, is a $3.8 million improvement to this bridge. Now, there is another question that someone put in the chat that I would like to address with regard to what would make to me it's a no-brainer, but I would like to hear from either Mr. Valenzuela, Mr. Perry, or Mr. Denard. Why would you characterize this project as an improvement? Because I guess sometimes people may not see it the same way, and I want everyone to clearly understand why this is considered an improvement to that bridge.
I'll take this one. And so just to get this kind of ties back into your funding question. This bridge project is actually federally funded. So, and it's federally funded with a statewide bridge replacement program where the state works with local governments from all over the state to identify structurally deficient bridges or bridges that are in need of repair. Biannually, meaning every 2 years, we inspect all bridges in the state of Georgia. And develop ratings and basically assess the condition of those bridges. Bridges either get placed on 3 lists. You're okay. They can last. We either put them up in our bridge rehab program, which means that we'll rehab the bridge. We'll do some maintenance on the bridge. There may be sections of the bridge, like the top portion of the base may be okay, or the columns may be okay, but then we'll have to do some repairs on just a portion of it. But then the third category is replacement. And so that's when we deem, based on the elements of the bridge in our inspections, we deem that bridge to be in need of replacement. And so this is one of those bridges. And so years ago, and notice it was 2021 when we had our meeting. Unfortunately, these bridge projects last for a great deal of time. And, with the right-of-way acquisition, there was environmental issues that we had to deal with on this project because of the federal funding. And so now we're here. So the benefit is that this bridge continues, built in 1961, continues to be in use. If this bridge is not replaced, then what we usually go to is posting the bridge. And so as a bridge weakens over time, we basically say, okay, well, a certain percentage or certain vehicles can't traverse this bridge. So heavy vehicle cannot traverse this bridge, or, it could get up to a school bus, but some of your larger vehicles are posted so that they cannot traverse that bridge. So this bridge, the benefit to this community, to this road system, to Georgia, to the benefit, just generally speaking, is that this bridge is replaced and brought up to a good standard. So, and that's, I think that kind of helps give you a little bit, because this isn't just, this is, like I said, this is a statewide program, and we identify bridges all over, not just my district, but all over the state that are in those three categories, and specifically in the replacement category.
Thank you so much, Mr. Denard, for that explanation. I see that there's a hand raised by someone that's identifying themselves as Oakley Township. At this time, if you would unmute yourself and you would state your name and your question. Oakley Township with your hand raised. Going once, maybe twice. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next person.
Sorry about that.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, my apologies. I was trying to put the hand down.
Okay,
So,
I know it could be a problem sometimes.
sorry about that. So I'm the one that's in the chat asking those questions, well, that you had addressed.
Your name, ma'am, please?
Slayton is my last name. I'm the secretary, first name Brittany, on the HOA board in Oakley Township. So again, my questions are coming from conversations that have already been had. So I'm not just speaking to be speaking off of feelings. This is coming from facts. So our bridge is not something that needs to be done right now. It's not an immediate, we're in danger, it's going to collapse, nothing to that nature. And as far as me understanding, when the question was asked about how much of the acres need to be taken and things to that nature, it was, we don't know where the 4 acres came from. My question is, from what you all do know about the project and how much land that you're trying to inquire, whether it's the field or what the corner, the conversation or the call that is happening as far as the negotiation, the 3 members that are on here now that's able to give us all this information, is there a reason that you all weren't on that call that we had with GDOT when they told us the parcels and gave us the layout and things to that nature? Because y'all are clearly more informed, as it seems as though you all have other information than what was given to us on this call we had with GDOT, as far as the parcels that they're pretty much going to inquire on their own if we don't agree to this dollar amount that they're offering. Are you aware of that call that was scheduled with the board members of Oakley Township?
So once again, I can't get into specifics regarding the negotiations, but the first part of your question was when you mentioned that it seems as though Mr. Denard and myself are more informed. I'm assuming if we're talking about the same thing, you were talking to our right-of-way negotiators. They specialize in overall just right-of-way negotiations. With me being the district pre-construction engineer, not only do I manage them, but I manage our design section. I also manage our survey section. I manage our planning and programming section. So I have a broader level overview when it comes to just the overall project and project delivery from a District 7 perspective. Mr. Denard, on the other hand, being the district engineer, he manages not only supervises the pre-construction section, which I head, but he also understands the maintenance section. He manages the maintenance section, utilities, construction, as well as traffic operations. So with regards to whether or not a bridge is deemed structurally deficient, I'm not a structural engineer, but our bridge program puts together a set of metrics to help us determine whether or not a bridge is deemed structurally deficient. And so we like to be proactive rather than reactive. So in a situation such as this, if the metrics are showing that, hey, based on what we're seeing, that the bridge is becoming structurally deficient, we don't want to wait till we have a failure. We want to be proactive rather than reactive. Determine what that bridge is, figure out what our proposed solution will be, identify a funding source to help us alleviate that, and then move forward with our plan. So that's the best way that I can answer your question. But with regards to, once again, active right-of-way negotiations, meetings that are being held, I can't speak on that at this time.
Right. No, it would have been useful for you to be on that call, because one of the main things was about the utility placement that has to do with the land that is trying to be acquired. So a lot of the questions as to why these parcels need to be given to the city is why you would have been a benefit to be on that call, if that makes sense, because they couldn't answer none of the reasons as to why these parcels need to be taken from us, basically. So however y'all want to put it, Oakley Township is not in the business of wanting to give away our land. This again just comes to the white man coming to take what the black man has, and that's just how it feels at this point. I understand that it's we could feel it's fair, we could feel it's not fair, but at the end of the day, our feelings should matter. This is our community. We do own homes here. So yes, y'all keep throwing out this $3.8 million and things to that nature, but actually taking land from us, regardless if you're paying for it or not, I don't see how that's not something that we shouldn't care about, if that makes sense.
It makes sense what you're saying, but I do want you to understand it this way. When from what I heard earlier, the issue with you characterize it as taking. I really don't want to go that far in that, because of the fact that there's a negotiation and you're being offered, or the parcel owners are being offered, an amount of money for the acquisition of that land. Now, the reason why, from, I guess, the legal perspective, why you would acquire the land, not so that anybody else can own it per se, but based on what I think Mr. Perry and Mr. Denard explained, it's an issue of access. So it's an issue of access. It's an issue of being able to look at the utilities and maintaining the right of that access. So by acquiring that right of way, then at any time or during this entire period of time, and not limited to that, and continuing on to whatever amount of time, then that can continue to be, I guess, repaired, improved, and everything else that they mentioned here. So it's not as if the land is getting taken somewhere, or getting or something that you cannot use. It's, from the way that I see it, it's so that it can be maintained. And these different things can happen. So as an example, and I guess Mr. Denard and Mr. Perry can chime in on this, and Mr. Valenzuela, there are times I have 2 state highways in my district. One is Old National Highway, which is Highway 279, and Highway 138, which is Jonesboro Road. Both of those highways are Department of Transportation highways. What that means is, even if I see a dead deer in the middle of the road, I put in a C-click fix. Mr. Valenzuela gets it, and then he calls them, and then they have to come get it. Because it's an issue of, the way it's explained to me, it's an issue of liability. So whatever goes on Highway 138, Old National Highway, that is the highway that they maintain, the highway that say they own, and that's how they have access, even though that highway flows through our city. So I hope that made sense. And I hope that answers that question.
Ms. Pritchett.
So I understand you were saying being able to come back to do maintenance and things, but I mean, there's other ways around that than just completely owning that land. Like there can be a contract, there can be agreement to where there's a schedule made to where we need to come back and do this. There's leasing options. Like there's other options than actually having to take the land. I understand you want to keep saying no one's going to take it, but that's what eminent domain is. So basically they're offering us a dollar amount. If we don't accept it, then that's next steps. So I understand you keep trying to say they're not going to take it, but if we do not take the money they're offering, they are going to take it because there's legal ways, as you said, that people can still be thieves. So again, I'm completely fine with the bridge and the sidewalks. Don't get me wrong. I would love that. I want speed breakers, but clearly ain't nobody talking about speed bumps. But
we haven't, ma'am, we didn't get to that part yet because we're still answering these
I'm
questions.
not against the bridge. I'm just against the fact that of how far you all are coming in needing land, if that makes sense. If y'all could just touch what you already got or just not as much, that's fine. But to just come in and the people who we are having conversations with can't tell us why you need that much, that's the concern that I have. And then when we even ask, well, if you have this land, who's gonna maintain it? We couldn't even get an answer for that. Who's gonna cut the grass? It's conversations that's happening that's like I say, this conversation we have, and we need some more people on this call so we can actually have a real conversation. Or maybe y'all need to join the other call that we have with GDOT, but it's not all there.
Point taken.
So I'll let y'all go ahead and finish. That's my concern.
Ms. Pritchett, if I can offer, let me get with Paul and Landon throughout the days, and we'll make it available for you that you can share the construction plans that we have for this particular bridge, so where each resident can see it, if that's their land, not their land, and can easily look at the reason why they might be taking a bit more on a particular parcel and others not. And I'll be glad to explain afterwards once I share with you construction plans, which can be done in the next couple of days or so.
Sounds good. Now I'm going to take this last question at this portion from Miss Stacy Tynes, and then after that we have our fire chief Chad Jones, who's on this call, who we're going to talk about our upcoming fire station and the land that we acquired for that. So Stacy, if you're still here, if you would please unmute yourself to ask your question.
Hi, how are y'all? Sorry, I'm a little under the weather. Okay. I have two questions. The first one is, I think a couple years ago, maybe 3 or 4, they did work on the bridge. Can you elaborate on what was done then and why so much more extensive work needs to be done now?
So as Paul explained before, that GDOT does the reviews and on all the bridges that they manage every 2 years. GDOT provides all counties and municipalities a bridge report, which municipalities and counties are to provide the needed repairs immediately. And which about 2-3 years ago, I believe, we did some repairs on footings and on the deck of the bridge because it was opening, so that there were some concerns that bicyclists or motorists can get stuck on the middle of the deck of the bridge. So those minor repairs were done to ensure that the bridge was still open for the community. Knowing that the bridge was under design, that was what we've done it. At this point, the radius of the bridge is low, and very kindly, GDOT has provided to us all the needed funds to have a new bridge. Otherwise, we'll be just repairing every 2 years or so.
I got you. Secondly, we were told by GDOT that as addition to the bridge being done, they were also going to put those big green transformer-looking things on the land. And I'm concerned, I'm just expressing this to you guys today, I'm concerned that those big green transformers being so close to our playgrounds or close to our pools may not be healthy for our community. You might say we don't know anything about it, but I'm just telling you what was conveyed to us by GDOT themselves. So I am highly concerned. I don't think it's healthy for those things to be so close to our children at play. And that was all.
I don't believe that was accurate because GDOT doesn't put transformers. Maybe it was somebody from a power company or so on. GDOT, the contractor, will be just doing the bridge repairs and installation of the sidewalks and so on. So, for the sidewalks, I can tell you that, you put pipes below because it's going to be a closed system to allow runoff water getting into it and then discharge it. And then on the bridges, it's a new bridge that will provide, instead of having the older pedestrian bridge, will be just a bridge on, sidewalks on the bridge. And
Okay.
I'm not aware of where the
But,
work came
so
from.
I just want to know that if the land gets turned over to GDOT and GDOT, let's say hypothetically, transfers it to someone else, maybe Georgia Power, maybe the city, who knows? I just want to know that our representatives are going to do what's best for us as a community, as their constituents, and make sure that we are safe and we are in good hands. And I just don't think the transformers that close to playgrounds and play areas are safe. That is just my personal opinion. I'm doing a little research to find out whether or not I have a strong backing on how I feel. But I want to just be assured that whoever gets the land outside of GDOT, you all are making sure when y'all grant those permits and write the bill or whatever y'all do, you're making sure that we are thought about and our safety is considered first and foremost. And that's all. And not just the 8-point-something million dollars. I'm appreciative for the money being spent. I do feel like it's better ways to spend it. I'm happy to have a new bridge, but at the end of the day, no dollar amount is worth my health. And y'all have. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Stacy. Go ahead, Mr. Denard.
Yeah, I did want to. I tried to get in the chat and start answering some of the questions. There's just a lot in the chat, but I just wanted to generally say that a lot of the questions were specific to the right-of-way process and some of the negotiations. I can tell you that we do, like it has been said, that our negotiators speak directly to the parcel owners, and in this case, it would be the representatives from the HOA. I know there has been exchanges back and forth. I don't even sit in on those conversations because of the way our process works, in that we have those SMEs and the folks who work in our property acquisition who know more about the laws and our processes follow through. But it's very important. I wanted to just say, there have been a lot of concerns expressed and shared. So I will definitely have a conversation with our team about these concerns that have been expressed and shared. But from the thing that will help us move forward from your end is to make sure that you all are in touch with whomever is representing that parcel, whether it's the HOA, whether it's, the whoever it is that our GDOT folks are in contact with. Make sure that those folks are getting your concerns across to our negotiator. So that's what I will say.
Thank you again, Mr. Denard. Loretta, if you don't mind, we'll talk offline, and I'll make sure that the question that you have, unless you want to put it in the chat, which Mr. Denard will go through all the questions to be able to respond to everyone. Everyone has registered for this event, so I believe we do have all of your information. If that's okay, Loretta?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much. So at this time, now I don't see him here, but our fire chief, Chad Jones, let me make sure he's right there. So I'd like to introduce you all to our fire chief, Chad Jones, who will be explaining to the community the land that we purchased, where it's located, and what we're looking to do in this community.
Good evening, everyone, and sorry I had a little bit of technical difficulties. As some may know, got everything set up in time and went to click on it, and my computer decided to update. So sorry about that. A little late. So yeah, Councilwoman Pritchett and I have been having conversations since she was elected about the direction of your fire department. As you know, the fire department was started in 2018. It was a remnant of Fulton County. And part of that is what has driven us to get the property on Oakley Industrial. So what I did, we are wrapping up a station location. National average for fire department responses should be in the neighborhood of about 5 to 6 minutes. That is for fire safety and for EMS. Obviously, a small fire, we can get to it quickly, extinguish it. Obviously, with EMS, you want to get there quickly if someone's not breathing within that 5 to 6 minute range. Currently, for the city of South Fulton, in your area and some of the others, is about a 12 to 14 minute response. So we're almost triple what the national average and what we should be doing. So again, the stations that service your area are coming off of Buffington Road, Bethsaida Road, and also Cedar Grove. We do have an automatic aid with Union City and Fairburn, but again, you know, we want to be able to serve our own community. So outside company did the drive time analysis, and with this area, with y'all, the property we purchased was right at 7 acres, a little bit over 7 acres, which is right there at the entry of the Oakley Township, Oakley Terrace and Oakley Road. And it would service not only your community, but all the way down Fayetteville Road, down to Spence Road, and even the furthest tip down at the Fairfield Inn, right there at Highway 74. So another thing that ISO requires because of the industrial park is a ladder truck. So we are in the early stages of any type of design. We did a conceptual design. The city is bringing an architect on. We should have them on board next week, and then we'll be setting up meetings. So this is the first of many meetings that we'll be having across District 7 of what we'll be bringing. But the fire station we're looking at will be a 4-bay station, which will have an engine and a ladder, also a rescue and a hazmat unit. There's a lot of hazmat within the industrial park. The closest unit is up on Fulton Industrial in Robinson, which would be about a 30 to 40 minute drive time if something happened. Hopefully it never does, but as y'all seen in the news lately with Conyers, it can happen. And we want equipment close by. Also with the rescue, we supplement Grady EMS as our transport. And we've already had some transports from our rescues. And the last thing we'll do is, because the city is so large in the way it's shaped, is actually be putting a small storage warehouse on there. So again, when we get the conceptual design and architectural design, we'll be coming back and getting more input. So again, just trying to start the conversation and see what concerns y'all have, what y'all would like to see in the community, so that we can make sure that we have everything in the station that y'all want to have.
So, Chief Jones, you had talked about, me and you had talked about the fact that a lot of our stations, how many fire stations do we have in our city in total?
So currently, for a city, we have almost 100 square miles, and we have 9 fire stations. And ISO, when they came in and evaluated, said for us to have a minimum of 16. So we need to add 7 over the next couple of years. And also the big ladder trucks that y'all see with a 100-foot aerial, they said for a city our size currently, we need 7. Obviously, y'all know we're growing, but we only have 2. We have one that is on Buffington Road, and then the second one is up on Fulton Industrial at Robinson Road.
And so I know I was made aware that there's a petition by this community in particular well, not everyone in the community, but there are people who are petitioning against us building a fire station. I think that what I read was that they believe that they're a quiet community, and they don't want to be disturbed in that manner. Could you speak about the benefits of having a fire station, the benefits to a community, also the benefits in insurance, for insurance rates, and those type of things?
Yes, ma'am. Obviously, everybody is concerned about noise. So We're also concerned about noise. After 34 years, I have quite a bit of hearing loss from all of the sirens that I've heard. So we're very conscious and aware of what it does to a community. But there again, the way you position a station, the way you point the apparatus, yeah, they are a very quiet community. And it wouldn't change very much because the calls that come, our fire trucks are coming down Oakley Industrial anyway. They kind of come off of 138 down Oakley. So what you hear is basically, but as the city grows, obviously the call volume, but we do try to make sure, especially at night, things like that, not to blare our sirens. But the benefits be several different things. One, the station's 24/7. So if anybody needs a shelter in place, we do have backup power. We would be looking at solar, but we do have backup generators. So if anybody needed something through a storm or disaster, it would be an area of refuge. The other thing is the quickness of the fire station and the rescues being able to get to their homes. ISO, right now, we are a low 3. We're looking to move that to a 2 and then obviously a 1. But as most people know, when you fill out insurances with your home, even the industrial, they ask you how close a fire station is, which would put this one basically close enough that it should reduce some of your insurance rates, depending on your insurance. So our main thing is to save lives and property. The quicker we can get someone somewhere, the better we can do that. Obviously, like I said, if station 7 and 5 are out on a call, the response times are even longer than 14 to 16 minutes. And sometimes you wouldn't even get a city of South Fulton. You may get a Fairburn or Union City if they're not busy. So quicker response to save life and property is our main goal.
So, Chief Jones, currently, someone asked in the chat about where the closest fire station is. And so my response was that the closest fire station for the city of South Fulton is Bethsaida Road. However, that's Station 5. But the closest fire station logistically is actually the Union City Fire Station, which is a whole nother city. And although we have agreements with them, we really want to be able to service our community, with our own stations. With that,
I want to interject something too. Our automatic and mutual aids with those are for fire calls only, and we are working on that, trying to update through our Fulton County CAD so that we truly do have an automatic. And that's one of the situations where the city is in. When Fulton County used to cover all of South County, they positioned their stations in the 60s and 70s and 80s to run the entire county. As cities incorporated, such as Union City, Fairburn, Palmetto, Chat Hills, and even ourselves, we were able to basically, they transferred the stations. So when they looked at it globally, they had different fire stations. We don't have that. So again, if someone has an auto accident, a heart attack, things like that, Union City, Fairburn, unless we do a special call, will not respond. They're only on fire calls. So again, like you said, our city's growing, their cities are growing, and the amount of calls are going up. If you look at our data, which I'll present back in 2018, the city as a whole ran about 15,000 calls. We're approaching 30,000 calls this year. So again, in just 7 years, our call volume is almost doubled. Anybody that drives out on Oakley sees right across the street, you have another subdivision going in. There's growth all over. And again, it's bringing safety. Yes, there is a school. We have talked to the principal about that, the daycare. As y'all know, we do statewide training for 3rd grade. So other things I'd like to know too is I've talked with the police chief. One of the things I don't have data, I heard they talked about is people stealing like Amazon packages, things like that was a rash. We can put into the fire station what they call a safe zone where those packages can be dropped off in certain, kind of like Lowe's, Home Depot, whatever. They put it in a lock box. They text you, you come up there. Like I said, we're 24/7. You can get your packages. So we want to know from the community what you want, in your fire station, and so that we can benefit the community. We had talked about a community room where you can host meetings. I do see some things popping up about the owner. It was DR Fulton, I believe, that had the parcel up for sale. It was brought up to the city manager and our land acquisition, and they're the ones that went through and purchased the land from the owner. So hopefully I caught that one question popping up. Yes, I see that about the fire trucks. One of the things we are looking at, working with Antonio, is I know I've come that way. I live real close to this community. I drive through it all the time. And I know morning times for the schools, you have the resource officer out there trying to direct traffic. I know a little bit over, I remember how long ago it was. There was a young driver that was killed on Oakley right there by the school. You got school children, you got people walking. I know your community is very active on the sidewalks. So one of the things we had talked about doing is putting up either the flashing lights for people to know when we are entering and exiting with our fire trucks, or possibly even putting a light. But those are down the road, and there's things that we have considered, when we purchase this property and what we can bring to the community to make it safer.
So Chief Jones, and then I'll get to Stacy's question if it hasn't been answered already. Chief, how long will this process potentially take?
So again, it's going to be a little bit lengthy. As the fire chief, I'd like to tell y'all, hey, we're going to push dirt tomorrow, but that's just not going to happen. Chief, the Councilwoman Pritchett knows I talk to him all the time. We are in the process for the city of moving towards financing, getting a bond rating. The city manager published the 22 audit. I believe the 23 audit is about done and ready to be published, and then they'll start working on the 24. So again, in this year's budget, they put almost a little bit over $3 million for capital projects. We have another one across the city in Cascade, Palmetto, for our headquarters and another station. Those are areas we really deem that we have the longest response times, and we have quite a bit of calls. So our goal is to get it to the architects, start having meetings, getting design phase, and sometime next year, hopefully, we start moving some dirt. It already looks like a lot of it was leveled. There's the planted pines on the one side towards Oakley Road. Oakley Terrace with the school. The fire station would actually sit on that corner. So it would actually be the furthest away from Oakley Township and be pointed out. So it'd be right there on the corner. And the logistics building would be closer to where they have that Ford lot right now, that flat area. So we're trying to look at buffers to make sure y'all don't hear or see as much and it stays very quiet. But my goal is in fiscal year 26, which would start next October, to be asking for the staffing and the equipment for that station. So you'd look to possibly be either 26, calendar year 26, to have the station up is our goal.
Thank you, Chief. Stacy, did that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am, for the most part. And I may have overheard, didn't hear this. Will there be a police station there also?
There
No.
were not. Our police headquarters is going on like almost to where the corner is by Highway 138 and Old National. And we've already broken ground there. So right now they're doing design and doing the RFP for the project, but a police station will not be going there. Does anyone have any additional questions?
Yes, can we answer the question about the maintenance of that lot up there? Now that City of South Fulton having it, what happens to our monument? When will it be cleaned and secured up there? And is We already answered the question about the lights, but basically that lot is not secure. People go up there, hang out there, is dirt up there, is sofas up there, so it's not secure. And are we going to lose our Oakley Township monument?
Mr. Valenzuela, I guess, well, let's see. So we're switching topics, right?
I'm not, are you talking about the sign? Is that the monument you're talking about?
Right. So y'all have a white fence up there, which is our community fence. The actual lot itself is not secure. And then, yes, there's the actual Oakley Township monument that's like right there on the end of, enter. So basically you have to pass that sign to get into the entrance to your lot currently.
Correct. That was actually
Yes.
an easement. So the city did not buy that. That was left for Oakley Township. So my understanding with everything that will not be moved. I know that our maintenance is supposed to be going by there. That's something Antonio can talk about, but we are looking at ways to better secure that lot and move forward and keep it clean and everything until we start. And then once the fire station, the actual firefighters will be keeping that area clean. Antonio, if you got more.
No, I agree with what you said,
That's
Chad. It's pretty much if we own the lot, our team, General Services, will secure the lot to avoid any littering or illegal dumping into a lot owned by the city. That's what I'm sure is coming up down the road. And anything outside what we didn't buy, it still remains as the land owned by the HOA, which they will be responsible for maintaining their own land.
Next question, Loretta, if you would unmute yourself.
Just a quick question. The proposed entrance to the fire station, will it go directly onto Oakley Industrial, or will you use the road where the schools are or the entrance to our neighborhood?
So until we get with the architect, but I'm gonna say right now, we had talked about the obviously the exit of the fire station, the ramps will go right out onto Oakley Industrial. But to keep the aesthetic, the sidewalks, we had talked about the entrances actually being over at the school. That's the side where the fire station would be, but they'd also maintain the entrance on the Oakley Terrace side for cars and things like that. So there is already 2 curb cuts. If you go down towards the school, right past the planted pines on the right, you can actually see the curb cut that goes into the property. So that would be the entrance, kind of the back entrance into the back of the fire station on Oakley Terrace.
Did that answer your question, Loretta?
It did. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Dominique, I see you have your hand up and I see you had a question, but I'm not sure if we answered your question that you had in the chat. If you'd like to unmute yourself, Dominique. Dominique Huff, if you could hear.
Yeah, thanks. The question I had, I don't know why he's. Yeah, thanks. The question I had was, yes, sorry about I have low tech difficulties, but the question I have is, I see this is pretty much a done deal, but what about Chief emergency response times? We're still dealing with the fact we have no ERs in South Fulton County. We have to build a station on Cameron Road in South Carolina to help those responses. Is the city going to do something in regards to a station that can deal with certain emergencies where we can help our residents, particularly in that part of the city?
Someone can help me out. I only caught about every third word, so I wasn't really sure what the question was.
Dominique, if you would, if it might be easier for you to put your question in the chat.
I try. Can you hear me now?
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, that's better. You're muted again, Dominique. We can't hear
I
you
think
now.
it is in the chat, Councilwoman Pritchett. I think he did write it in the chat initially. Just
Okay.
scroll up a little bit, a couple of the messages, his is there.
Okay. And then I do see that Stacy chimed in and said that they're building a Grady ER on South Fulton Parkway. Do you know anything about that, Chief Jones?
Yes, ma'am. We've been looking, so for your area, actually, if you measure it out, Southern Regional, Fayette Medical are actually closer. But they are building right next to South Fulton Parkway and 92. Right next to the Fulton County building, they will be building a Grady ER. So that is one reason that last year we started our EMS expansion, because of the fact of the long distance that we're having to travel. And I know Atlanta did a EMS station only. That's not something I would recommend, because again, for us, we need fire stations, we need fire trucks, but our rescues are transport capable. There is some things that at a different level down at the state, I am trying to change some of the EMS laws for the fact that we're kind of handcuffed in what we get and how they deal. I think it's a travesty that we do not have an ER below I-20 for all of South Fulton County. Again, you know, if you take the population, I'm not sure how they can say that we don't have a certificate of need, when in just my 34 years, I know they've closed 3 hospitals below I-20. So, so again, with state laws, if it's a serious emergency, you go to the closest facility. So that's why they end up going to Fayette. Even on the Palmetto side, they end up in Newnan. On the Fulton Industrial side, they end up in Douglas and Cobb. So again, it depends on where you're located in our city, what the closest facility is. So having that Grady ER in Union City will be helpful, but it's probably, again, 3 to 4 years out, possibly. But what we're trying to do is add to the response mechanism to get there quicker, and to provide life-saving efforts. And then again, if Grady does not have a unit available, we now have rescues that we can transport quickly. And instead of waiting 30 or 45 minutes, we're in and out of the scene in less than 10 minutes.
Okay, and Oakley Township, who has their hand raised, if you can unmute your mic and state your name again and ask your question, please.
Yes, this is Brittany again. I was trying to get in earlier when Mr. Antonio responded. He was basically talking about the cleanup and securing that lot. Since it's already been purchased by the city of South Fulton, what is the time frame on that cleanup happening and it being secure? Because I mean, it's been owned for a minute. We've even reached out, you know, regarding that lot. So whom is the right contact? Because the HOA, as in the board and everyone paying their dues, we have been the ones having to maintain that lot, the grass, all that.
Chad, if you don't mind just having a conversation with General Services. I don't have exactly the limits of what you have purchased for the fire station, but it's something that among yourself and General Services should be able to provide a fence, or I don't know what the plans are, and anything that we can do to help out to make it cleaner that site, we'll be glad to provide any necessary support.
Okay, and I'm sorry, you said reach out to whom? I apologize, I couldn't understand the name you were saying.
He was directing Chief Jones to reach out to our general services department.
Okay.
And I'll get you an answer on that and get it back to the councilwoman probably before the end of the week, and we'll make sure we send someone out there. So I did see a question as I'm going through the chat about, you know, coming out, how do we not use lights and sirens or whatever. So again, there are ways for us to be aware. It is a state law that if we're responding to emergency, police, fire, EMS, you do have to use lights and sirens. But we have installed 2 different sirens, and we don't have to blare them. So the decibel levels and things like that. So when we exit a fire station on a call, our lights are on. It's the red and white flashing lights, but we call it what we call bumping. So again, instead of just blaring the sirens, especially at 2 a.m, there's nobody out there, there's no reason to. We can just kind of hit it and cut it off. And that's the way we keep the sounds down, not to disturb anybody, and we can get out safely and still be within the law.
Thanks, Chief. And the last thing before we get to talking about speed bumps is, Chief, if you can explain to everyone how the fire department does the smoke detector installations, how you give out free smoke detectors and you actually do the installations at no cost. If you could
Yes,
talk
ma'am.
about that.
Well, thank you. We also have, I'm going to talk about a lot about our community risk reduction. It's one of the programs I'm very happy that we've been expanding since my 3 years here. And it's all about community involvement. So programs that y'all will be seeing when we get the station open will be like a community emergency response team that we come in and we give classes what to do in the first 72 hours of an emergency. We also offer free CPR classes, which once that station is up, we can offer them right there at the entrance to the Oakley Township, where people can come and get free classes. What Councilwoman is talking about, we already have a program where you can go on our website, you can send us an email, you can go into See Quick Fix, you can call our 311 and you can ask for a smoke detector. We will come out, we will look at your home and we will install one for free. We do blitzes. So if the township, if the HOA said, hey, you know, we'd like you to just come out and evaluate, we can do that. Y'all are a large subdivision, so it may take us a minute to get all the way around. But those are things that we offer the community as a give back. We also, again, with the school, we have fire safety. We have a nice fire safety trailer that we allow the kids to go into. We teach them about fire safety in the kitchens, in the bedroom, how to escape, stop, drop, and roll, and friendly firefighters so they're not scared. So those are things that we can give readily to the community and teach them. I see about the elderly. We also, our CRR teaches classes about care for elderly. Also things about not leaving things on the stove. We can give pointers of, we just passed an ordinance last year. It does not affect single family residents. I want to say that again, it doesn't affect single family residents, but multifamily and senior facilities, they are requiring what they call a smart stove. Actually, you can convert your stove into a smart stove, but with a plug, or if you have the old eyes, you can change the eyes out with technology. A lot of our fires that we still see today is cooking fires, where someone may leave the pot on the stove, they forget about it, they go outside, a lot of different reasons that they forget about it. But again, they catch their kitchen on fire. These stoves will not let the eyes of the stove get hot enough to ignite. And if they're left unattended for so many hours, they cut off automatically, and they're smart stoves. So it's things like that that we try to do and help our elderly out so that we can reduce fires in our community.
So last weekend or Friday, one of the homes in another subdivision, Stone Ridge, a widow that lives there, she had some electric cars in her garage and they were lithium battery, and she was charging them and something happened and it exploded and the garage caught fire. So I didn't know about it at first. Neighbors there called me. I called Chief Jones and he was explaining to me how to be cautionary with lithium batteries, charging batteries, even many of you who may have EV vehicles. So this last part, I just like Chief Jones to briefly tell you about the dangers or how to properly deal with lithium batteries and charging your car and those type of unintended consequences.
Yes, thank you, Councilwoman. So again, one of the things that the fire service in general is facing is a new risk, which is electric vehicles. Through my career, we had the gas and diesel, then we went to natural gas, and we've gone to compressed gas, and now we've worked our way all the way around to lithium batteries. And the problem we're seeing with lithium batteries is not only the first generation, but the second generation is overheating. So again, with the car fires, truck fires, and even house fires, a lot of it happens when they're charging. So we recommend, again, that if you purchase an electric vehicle, whether it's a large vehicle or even a ATV or a child, make sure you read the warnings, make sure you're following the directions on charging. When you purchase a vehicle, there are aftermarket chargers. We don't recommend that. We recommend you go with what the dealer or the manufacturer recommends for the charging, and have it installed by a professional electrician. A lot of the companies now are saying that you don't need to charge them inside the charging station to the outside of your house, even to the fact that they're saying don't be in your cars when you're charging them, because these batteries overheat very quickly and they combust. And the batteries themselves are encased in kind of the black box technology with the radiant heat. So one of the risks we have as firefighters is making sure that we can disconnect it, having a disconnect installed. We actually have an ordinance that is working its way through the process now for commercial buildings that have EV charging to make sure they have a disconnect. Just like you see at the gas station, everywhere you go in, you can look and it says emergency shut off for the fuel. It shuts the fuel off to the pumps in case there's a problem. We need the same thing. We need to be able to de-energize that vehicle to put them out. And it's very difficult when they're in a structure too, because then you have the structure and the EV that is on fire. So you'll be seeing a lot more. We're working with manufacturers. We're trying to get ahead of this because it's rolling out there, and even for the international building codes which we follow in the city, there's just nothing in there that pertains really to EV, and especially single family residents, because our code enforcement, our fire departments, that's your private residence. And so we really cannot tell you what you can or cannot have in there. We can only issue guidance and hope that people follow those guidance of how to properly charge to be safe on their EVs. But again, be very careful if they catch fire. Obviously get out. But again, trying to unplug it, especially right there in the vehicle, is not recommended. That's why you need something to unplug it from the other end. And a lot of the charging stations just don't have that right now.
Thank you very much, Chief. So now I'm going to pivot to another issue that I saw on the petition, where citizens in Oakley Township, or the residents there, are interested in speed bumps. So Mr. Valenzuela, can you talk about speed bumps, the type of speed bumps, the process of petitioning, the study, all of that? So Mr. Valenzuela, if you would unmute and explain this to everyone.
Yes, Councilwoman Pritchett, I'm gonna try to be as brief as possible. First of all, I'm gonna push it on for everybody. I put a note right there on the chat that please reach out to Francois at CSL-Fulton-GA.gov for traffic calming petitions. We have amended our traffic calming ordinance a few months ago, and it's much easier to do these days. But everything starts with a petition for a particular subdivision throughout their HOAs or throughout a group of residents that want to see their roads, trying to minimize or avoid the high speeds on particular roads. It can be applied. All it's needed is a petition that would meet the 50% plus one agreement on a petition. So once you've done that, we receive that petition. Mr. Francois will do his own evaluations, look at the records and so on, and he will be contacting you. Yes, your petition has met the guidelines, and we'll move on. We will move on with the analysis of the particular road. So I highly encourage you, just contact them, send them an email, ask them what is the process, and he will provide to you all a detailed explanation of what you need to do, and everything will be done online. To summarize a few things that we do, we looked at the speeds. We do traffic counts on the specific roads that you're going to be requesting from us. We do the traffic count, and then if the threshold, in accordance of MUTCD guidelines and traffic engineering guidelines, if it meets it, we will be providing back to you that your particular petition has met the traffic study, and then we'll be coming back to you with recommendations and meet with you to go over the report where your request has met all engineering guidelines. With that, after that, it's now at this point, there's no cost for the HOAs, there's no cost for the subdivisions or for particular roads within a subdivision. We'll go through the process, we'll meet with you all, and then we'll bid the project. And in a very short time, we're able to provide installation of traffic calming devices, such as the most known is speed tables, something that's softer for the roadways where vehicles do not make too much of a noise when they go over, and it's a simple process for us. And what I can tell you that there's a petition. Then it makes the 50% plus one. Then we have about 20 days verification process. Then we go into the traffic calming study. If it meets the criteria, we go into the design of proposed alternatives. And that takes us about 90 days. After that, we come back to you all, we have a meeting with you, and then we have an additional 90 days for installation of the devices, which is what will be shared with you all. In essence, 50% plus one, your petition gets approved. The speed standard, the 85 percentile speeds of 5 miles per hour or greater than the positive speed limit, then it met the criteria, and most likely we go and do the installation of speed tables for your community. With that said, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Okay, so Mr. Valenzuela, Ms. Loretta said that additional stop signs would be just as effective as speed bumps. That's her opinion. Can you talk to that?
Two different things. We install four-way stop signs when it meets the criteria. In other words, the traffic is balanced among the four roads that might meet at one node. So if the traffic volume is about equal on the four ways, we go to the traffic counts, and then we make a recommendation to change a two-way road or two-way stop road into a four-way stop condition. But we have to verify all those through a traffic study. Now, the traffic count is just one way to slow speeds at certain locations. But it's not for everybody. It's not for every community. But we'll do whatever the traffic study will recommend, and we'll go along with your request back to the city.
So, Mr. Valenzuela, you're saying 50% plus one. So where would that number come from?
That's the ordinance that was approved by mayor and council.
Okay.
It's part of the ordinance. So as you know, the city must go and apply anything that we do in accordance of ordinance.
Okay, so the number of residents, I guess the 50%.
To give an example, perhaps within a subdivision, you have road X that has a beginning and an end. Within that particular segment, there might be 20 or 30 residents, or it might be a longer stretch. In many cases, what we have observed is that on the main entrance to a subdivision, that's the areas where, in general, people speed up. So it might be from the beginning of the entrance to the up to a point where roads, vehicles starts turning left or right. So it might be on a stretch of 3-4 segments. Within that particular stretch, there are a number of residents. So all those residents, we count into those. If there are 100 residents, in order for a petition to be valid, it will be 50 residents plus one. Then the petition becomes valid. And we start the process for traffic studies.
Thank you. So we have a few questions. I believe it's Dorothy Cadet. If you can unmute yourself.
Hi, my question is the rumor, I've been out here at Oakley Township about 18 years. It's always, we've had this discussion before about the speed bumps. And so I want someone, especially Chief Jones or Mr. Valenzuela, to dispel or unspell the rumor about the speed bumps slowing down response times for EMS workers, like the ambulance or the fire trucks, because that's always been a rumor out here about the speed bump issue, or that they slow down or hinder first responders' response to emergencies.
It will typically do, but I don't have the timing. I don't have the accurate time that Chief Jones has it to respond from point A to point C when he gets the call. But I'm sure that a road that doesn't have speed tables, it will be much faster than a road that has speed tables. With that said, Chief Jones?
Yes, so couple of things about those. We typically go with whatever the community wants. And the reason, like the speed tables, we'd rather have the tables instead of the speed humps and bumps and whatever they're called. So if you can imagine, a hump or a bump is like you would typically see all the way across the road. And we do, because our equipment is so heavy, school buses, your trash pickup, your fire trucks, they have to slow down a lot because of the fact of going up and over. We have typically asked, in the design, have gone to the tables, and Antonio can explain it, but they are basically a square block. So a vehicle such as a fire truck with a wide wheelbase, we can actually drive through them without actually having to stop. We do slow down, but running residential, we're only running 30 to 35 miles an hour anyway, normal speed limits. So having the tables, also it's better for people that ride bicycles or motorcycles, because those can also cause wrecks with the speed bumps or humps, because again, they can't navigate without going over them. And so the tables have been safer. But again, where we see people are very upset is anybody that has a lower vehicle, especially running ground effects or anything like that, that is just an inch or two off. They don't want them because it's going to tear up their car and they can't get around them. So again, if the subdivision, depending on how many you put in, you can upset your own residents. But again, for us, we really petition to go with the tables because it's less wear and tear on our large vehicles. We can navigate them. But again, coming through the subdivision, it slows down. But if you go with the bumps or the humps, it does affect our response times by a little bit, because we have to almost come to a stop to get all of our wheels over them. And again, so that's kind of a speed hump.
Are you referring to the ones, when you say speed tables, are you referring to the ones, that one comes to mind, the ones on New Hope Road in Cascade? Are those the speed tables you're talking about with the split? Where there's a split?
Correct. It is a normal vehicle, a truck car. They normally can put one wheel in the middle, but one wheel will go up over that speed table, and it causes them to slow down. But a fire truck or a dump truck or trash truck, our wheelbases are wider. So it's made to where we can actually just drive straight through them without hitting them.
Okay.
So,
Go ahead,
just
Mr.
in
Valenzuela.
Yeah, just in general, the installation is not an issue. I would try to do a very soft transition for any vehicle, but it's just that engineering tells us if you are driving without slowing, the response time is going to be fast. regardless of the type of gadget that we install, is going to slow down because nobody's going to fly because safety reasons, first of all. So when we put those speed tables, it is to go at 15 miles per hour. Typically in a subdivision, your speed limit should be 25 miles per hour. So it is upon the residents to work inside their HOAs, work it out so they can drive at 25 miles per hour and everybody will be happy. So speed tables are not for every subdivision. It's not for every HOA. It is amongst what you want to do. And I will say that if you put anything on the road, it's going to slow down somehow.
Thank you. And Mr. Willie Gamble, if you would unmute yourself.
Good evening. My question is no parking signs. What is the process of getting those signs installed? Since I know there's a city ordinance that says no parking.
All right. Good questions. The email that I put right there for Mr. Francois, he also handles no parking within specific roads in a subdivision. One of the items that we require is, first of all, the petition. There has to be a resolution from the HOA agreeing to install no parking signs in specific locations within the subdivision. So upon you submitting that stuff, we will verify, fire verifies, we verify, it gets approved, then we install the signs.
Okay. And so
And with that, I'm sorry, Ms. Pratt, I had a question about that. So would that still be that 50 plus one on like the street of the affected homes, or could that be the entire, like how does that petition work, or that vote or whatever, to get those signs put up?
It's a resolution for the all that comes from your HOA, where you kind of vote that you're agreeing not to have parking not to have parking access at certain locations. As you know, it's a little controversial, right? Because everybody has guesses, everybody has their own particular parties, the kids, and so on. So we leave up to you all, and then upon receiving the information, we proceed.
The reason that I asked that question was because the street that I live on, the buses can't go down to pick up school kids. And there's cars on both sides of the road, and the roads are very narrow.
So I guess what, as Mr. Valenzuela was stating, is it's a decision that you have to make as a community, because you live off of Toluga Lane, Toccoa.
Yes.
And Toccoa is that like super duper long street. And so if you, as a community today, decided, hey, we want it to be no parking, then your HOA or your governing body would let me know, and then I would draft a resolution for the council to approve. And then once that resolution is passed, then Mr. Valenzuela would come out and do the assessment and place the signs where they need to be. So what that would mean is, even if you had company, even if whatever the case, you can't park on the street. But then what'll happen is, when people start calling the police and code enforcement and you start getting ticketed and even possibly towed, then people will be upset. So as Mr. Valenzuela stated, some of these issues, legislation and regulation is really not the answer to every problem in every community, because once you involve us, then you're creating laws, or you're creating a structure or a mechanism that has punitive consequences. So it's really best that the community, these are the type of issues that you really need to discuss with the HOA. But if there are issues that are, they're really a problem, when they happen, for instance, I had a community where there was a car parked perpendicular and the school bus could not get past and drop the kids off. So somebody took a picture, texted to me. I got in touch with the police chief, and they had a tow truck coming, and the car moved all of a sudden. So I have put my phone number and my email in the chat, because sometimes, as people have made comments, that the police response times may not be as best, they might not be the greatest. And I'm just being honest with that. We are like the outskirts or one of the outlying borders of the city, and it's not an excuse, but the reality is, when you need help or you need something escalated, I offer myself you to contact me directly. So you can call me, you can text me. Text is the better way, because sometimes I can't answer, or you can email me, and that way I escalate it up the ladder in any way that I have to be able to alleviate the problem or try to resolve the conflict. So if you're having problems with parking and that type of thing, we will have more community meetings. I had this one today on Zoom, because in the past, when we advertise these type of meetings and I get the economic development office ready or their library, only like 10, 20 people show up. But this was a very good crowd. I'm very pleased with the participation here and the information that we put out. So we look forward to doing this again, and hearing what are your concerns, and how we can deal with those concerns. And so, and Chief, go ahead.
Just real quick too, one thing I wanted the community to know is, and Councilwoman knows this too, myself and Keith Meadows, the police chief, we work really well together. We work on a lot of projects together. And again, another point of having a fire station right down the street is police officers a lot of times are in their cars, and they don't necessarily have a precinct. So having a fire station, they come into our fire stations quite a bit, whether they need to have a place to eat, a place to go to the restroom, just a place to get out of their car or whatever. So again, I know it's brought up that y'all don't have a police precinct, but it could be something that we can solve by him having police in the area more, because we would have a facility for them to stop at and be a secure location for them to get out and come. So just wanted to point that out. I know as the things that popped up in the chat about police and police presence, having a station right there where they can come and have a place to park and things would be beneficial on that front too.
And so I see a comment from Miss Tina in the chat about the police saying themselves that they're non-existent, that they said this at a HOA meeting. So I'm not aware of this. I haven't attended the HOA meetings, and if I'm invited, I'll come. If the police is invited, they'll come. But I will tell you that that's not an acceptable answer. It's not an acceptable response, even no matter where we're located. And the fact that our closest precinct would actually be on Roosevelt Highway, it still doesn't excuse the fact that when there's an issue in the area, the police have to respond. What I do, and it's just my personal practice, is when I call the police, I always ask to meet with the officer. That way I know that somebody has to talk to me before or after dealing with the issue. And it's sometimes helpful because I call all the time for different suspicious things that I see and hear. Most recently, I heard gunshots, which they weren't gunshots. They were more like automatic rifle shots. And the officer came and he talked to me about it. And we talked about where it sounded like it was coming from. For everybody to know, I kind of live across the street from you guys. I live in Oakley Station, which is across the street from Oakley Township. So the gunshots or the rifle shots that I heard, somebody in your community should have heard as well. So in saying that, I want to make sure as a city that you get the best treatment, the best municipal services, and that you're also safe. So if you call the police and the police hasn't come in a reasonable amount of time, and reasonable, I would say, would be about 30 minutes, say kind of tops, then please text me, email me, and the last resort, if it's a super emergency, call me, because we want to make sure that we improve on that. I do want to mention something interesting that happened about a month ago in Oakley Township. I believe it was on Toluga Lane. I get a phone call, I get a message on Nextdoor from one of your neighbors on a Friday about squatters. The squatters were ejected on a Friday. And then by Saturday, they came back because they were mad. I asked the neighbor, what is the address? She didn't give me the address right away. By Sunday morning, she says that she sees water running from the garage and there was a concern. Then I get the address. I just said, let me come over there myself. What I saw was a house that from the inside was destroyed. The squatters that were there, they tore out the ceiling, they tore out the walls, they left the water running, they smashed out the window to the back door, left it unlocked. They just did a lot of damage. And I called the police myself, and the police chief knew that I was there. And it took a while for them to respond to me because at that same day, a 4-year-old had shot somebody, I think killed his father, a 4-year-old with a gun. So not to say that it's an excuse for it, but there's a lot of dynamics in what goes into policing. And sometimes it boils down to how you describe a situation, how you explain what is going on. And so on Thursday, we're having a public safety town hall meeting at the Fairfield Inn, which is at 7775 Ella Lane. And we're going to be discussing the shootings that have taken place in Renaissance, which is off of Oakley Industrial, further down towards Sonoya Road. When a community like that, that's as large as your community, well, not as large, but almost, when you have that kind of crime and violence going on, we want to address it in the entire area. But I specifically wanted to make sure that we addressed it with them. But everyone in the Oakley Township subdivision is welcome to come. It's at 7 p.m. Our police chief will be there. I think our fire chief might come too. We will be serving dinner so that it's not an inconvenience to you. And it'll be an in-person town hall meeting so that we can address your questions, answers, concerns. We do want to talk about establishing community crime watch programs so that you can develop a relationship with the officers that are supposed to do the community policing in the area, and talk about some of the technology that we have and how to integrate, so that we can help make things safer and empower you to, to keep your community safe. And so I do see that Mr. Fannin has his hand up, and if you would like to unmute and ask your question.
I'm actually glad you brought up the gun stuff. So one thing that we're having issues with is not just simply response time with the police, it's the actual response of the police or lack thereof. So to give you a recent example, we've had a lot of drug activity up at the ball courts to where we had to close the gates and put an attendant up there to try to restrict that flow a little bit. And then that started to spill over to the clubhouse parking lot. And these guys are treating it like it's their office. I mean, they'll spend entire days up there. And so the pool attendant up there called the police to let them know what was going on. And there was one particular group, these guys had guns out, just right there out in the open, selling their drugs, all that stuff, guns out. Called the police. She told the police officer, we want to have all of them criminal trespass so they cannot come back. And that way, if they do come back, they can be arrested. The police pulled up, got out of his car, looked at everyone. Some of the guys ran, took off. He did nothing. He pulled off and just drove away. So she calls 911 again. She reports, hey, nothing's happened. The officer just came out, did nothing. We need assistance with this. Can you please come back, criminal trespass these guys? He comes back. This time does not get out of his car, just sits in his car for a second. Has the 911 folks call her and ask, do you want us to do anything? She says, yes, have them criminal trespassed so that they cannot come back. He drove off. So,
Mr. Fannin,
well, hang
oh,
on.
go ahead.
It puts that attendant in jeopardy because now they have a pretty good idea of where that call came from. She's there by herself. She got no support from the law enforcement that she called. Yeah, they came, but they did nothing. And the nothing that they did actually put her in potential danger. That's the type of problems that we have in addition to the response times, is the actual responses or the lack thereof.
And I will thank you for bringing that to my attention. And Mr. Fannin, you know that you have had my number for a number of years, and we always have had a pretty good communication. I will invite you again to contact me with these issues. I haven't talked to you in a really long time, but regardless of any feelings about a lot of different things, I am committed to this community, and I am committed to responding to people. And a lot of people on this call know that firsthand. Even online on the Nextdoor app, I scan it to see different things that are going on so that I can get a gauge for what's happening, how we can improve on certain things and respond. So I will put my number in the chat again so that anytime that something like that happens, you're not getting any excuse from me there. That'll be an incident where I'll call our chief directly, our deputy chief, our city manager, because it is unacceptable for something like that to happen. To be transparent, it's happened to me. And we've had to resolve those issues because I call the police quite a bit. Not honestly, when I see something strange, I call the police. It was one night, it was like 1 a.m. I heard a bunch of laughing and noises, and I saw a truck in front of my house. And there were boys outside with phones, and they were trying to video something, and they were jumping up, and it was really crazy. And when the police came, they didn't take long, but when they did come, the car tried to flee. It was 4 boys and 1 girl. They all had sex with the girl, and they stole one of the boys' grandmother's SUV. And this was during some type of break. So by me calling the police, instead of just saying, oh, that's just some kids, they get on my nerves, those kids, there was a lot to answer for, and there was a lot going on there. And they had recovered 2 guns because those kids, it seemed like, were involved in a break-in to some cars at Oakley Township. So it all works together, but I insist that the police respond. And I sent out a survey a few months ago when we were talking about when the council was entertaining the citizen use of force board, adding a citizen to the current use of force board. And I was opposed to it. And I put together a survey because I wanted to know what everybody's thoughts were for as to your priorities related to the police department. And the number 1 response was police response times, that people were most concerned with that. The second highest concern were police officers' attitudes. So although people on the council, some members didn't like that I had done that survey, I felt that it was important to know how you really feel about our police department. Because if there's something that's not happening, we really want to improve. Now, I won't say that they are the worst or super terrible, because like I say, I call the police all the time when I see something, and I see quite a bit. And the police it's sometimes, I'm not saying it's a hit or miss, it's more hitting than missing lately, but we want to become more consistent. And the only way that I can address these issues with our police chief and the police department is by knowing. So I invite all of you, any of you, to take my cell phone number, lock it in your phone. And if something like this happens again, Mr. Fanning, I assure you, if you text me and you let me know that this is happening, not only will I respond, I'm right across the street. If that attendant was in danger, I may have even come over there myself to just see what is happening. And also at the public safety town hall that we're having on Thursday, this is something that you can discuss with our police chief. And these are issues that I want to hear about and we want to hear about, because we also want to talk about best practices and the safest way to deal with situations like that. I'll say, hey, I'm coming across the street, and I may come across the street. I don't want us all to get shot. So the police chief does tell me, no, do this or do that. But we want to make sure that we're addressing this correctly. Another thing that's helpful to the community when you're calling the police, when you're calling 911, always make sure to let them know that this is the city of South Fulton. I had to call the police for a business owner who thought they were being broken into, and I had to explain, this is this address, South Fulton, and I gave the zip code. And the reason why is because right now we have a 911 contract with Fulton County. They're not doing the best job, and we're looking to try to move away from them and have our own 911 system. But until then, we have to give them as much detailed information, because those calls are recorded. So you can always point back to, I said this location at this specific place, so that they're not wondering. Because sometimes when I've called, I feel like they're not even listening to what I'm saying because of the questions that they follow up asking that make no sense. But because Oakley Township has 2 zip codes, I believe, a portion of it might be 30213 and the other portion is 30291. Make sure they know the name of the street. Oakley Township subdivision is in South Fulton. And we want South Fulton police responding, or South Fulton fire responding. And if it gets beyond that you're not feeling comfortable, please text me and I will make it a priority. Let's see. And Oakley Township in the chat says, I get the call back line is busy. Text me, just make sure you text me if there's an emergency situation that you're not able to get in contact with a dispatcher or something to that effect. Also, if you come on Thursday, there was a flyer I created that also has the police's non-emergency communication, which is online and also by phone, because there are some issues that may happen that don't require the police to come out specifically. So we just put that information out there so that you have it. And we've gone a little bit over, but I wanted to make sure that we responded to all your questions, and that we address the majority of the issues that we set out to talk about this evening. So does anyone have the last call for questions? Well, with that being said, I appreciate all of you for coming out tonight. I think this was a great turnout, and it really shows that as a community, regardless of the different points of views on topics, that you all care about your community. I think you all are a spectacular community, great homes, and we want to keep your community safe, and we want to make sure that you're receiving the best services that you can from our city. And for that reason, I bought our subject matter experts, and I also bought our government partners to speak to you directly. And hopefully this shed a little bit more light on, a few situations. And with regard to any additional questions you have, please email me. Let's see, there's more. Okay. Oh, thank you guys for coming out though. Email me, and if we need to connect you to any particular person that has spoken this evening, then if you send me the email, we will connect you to get you the appropriate communication or response. So again, thank you so much for coming out this evening, and hoping to hear from you soon, and hoping to see you Thursday night at the Fairfield Inn at 7 p.m.